It's that time of the week already. It is Monday afternoon as we are recording, and it is time for me and Christoph to sit down and cover the match day number 13 games and game week. And I said coming into this game, game week, 13 if you're superstitious. Most people say it could be an unlucky number. Let's hope it's not unlucky for any of our teams. Well, unfortunately, Oldham suffered their second defeat of the season on Saturday, and it turned out to be an unlucky day for us. But that's probably what I would brand it as, an unlucky day. I think we were good enough to win the game at probably another point, but we'll come to that later on. First of all, Chris, welcome again. Have you had a good weekend?
I've had a great weekend, mate. Seeing my team not lose at home all season, so I got no complaints. But no, good weekend and excited to review this.
You're on a roll, right? You can't really you can't complain, you can't grumble. It's getting a bit scary, isn't it? But obviously, there's a lot of football to be played. Like there's nothing's wrapped up yet, but you are looking like maybe potential champion material at the minute. And fair play to you. It's a difficult league, isn't it? But yeah, perfect start. So we are here, and the first game. This week actually we had two games that were seven goal thrillers, didn't we, Chris? And they're the first two games that we're going to bring to you today. But the first one was perhaps the more, and actually, I don't know whether I would say it more as a surprise. I think it was more a resounding victory for Fylde against Aldershot. Now, we've been speaking about how we're a little bit worried, or maybe we put the positive jinx on them, Chris, because last week we were saying how we were a little bit worried for Fylde with all the talent in the squad, and that they're not really coming to the floor. But oh my goodness, did Fylde come to the floor against Aldershot? I mean, and you must be sick of listening to us talk about it, but how much often can we say Nick Haughton is an absolute alien in this division? He just does magical things that not many people can do in this division, doesn't he? Do you want to take us through game number one, Chris?
Yeah, I'll go for it. Look, obviously, there's people probably seen the video. I'm sure we put it up on the Twitter page that Nick Haughton scored from the halfway line. He's an absolute joke, and
It was even
look,
further back than the halfway line. He was
it
literally
was
still in his own
ridiculous.
half.
It was. Some people said the keeper should have saved it, but I was like, you know what? It's just a quality finish, so there's not much you can do when that kind of thing happens. But he opened the scoring, made it 1-0 in the 26th minute, and look, Chris Jolly made it 2-0 just 5 minutes later, and then another 7 minutes later, Gavin Massey made it 3-0 before Aldershot quickly bagged two goals, to only go in 3-2 down at half time, trying to get back into the game. But it wasn't enough, with Massey and Jolly getting another goal each to make it 5-2. And I think Aldershot are they're just struggling, man. I don't know, like when we played them a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think they were that great. But yeah, I think Aldershot are going to be in real trouble this season. They've not really built on their playoff kind of push last season, and look, it's very frustrating, I think, for them. And they've not really replaced the big losses of Josh Stokes and Tollage, so they've kind of lost out on key players, and look, they've not really replaced them. So it's definitely been a tough start for them.
I
But
th-
from
Sorry.
Fylde, it's a good win.
I think for me, like you said, the big thing is when you don't replace the quality that you've lost, you're always going to struggle. But I must admit, I didn't expect Aldershot to struggle like they have been struggling. No winning six now. Yes, they've only lost two in that period, but they've also drawn four. They're only 2 points off the bottom four. The slide looks real for now, and I think desperation will kick in soon. And I think shots are strong enough that once they get that first win back under the belt, they can go on a bit of a mini survival run and maybe finish like lower half mid table this year. But I do think them sort of two departures and not really finding the right replacements for them have been really harming them and hurting them. But for a Fylde perspective now, Chris, we look that as propelled. Well, yeah, I say propelled Fylde, but they are still in the bottom four currently. But they're only a point behind. But even though they are scoring bucket loads of goals, they are still on a -8 goal difference. So that shows how poor that defense has been. You know what I mean? So they've scored 18 and conceded 26, which is crazy, really, at this point of the season. But look, they we always say when you've got the quality of Eustabe, Nick Haughton, well, just to name a few, you should have enough to get yourself out of the scrap. And obviously, they've still got work to do, but this is a great start. And I think it's just vital for Hell to keep somebody like Nick Haughton fit, isn't it? Because the minute he goes down with an injury, even if it's just a 2 or 3 week injury, it could be absolutely detrimental to their chances, couldn't it?
Yeah, I do think so, but I think Fylde have been unlucky really in their first kind of games. I think they shouldn't be where they are. I think they probably deserve to be probably a good five, places higher in the division with their performances that they've put out. And look, they've got so many goals in this team, and look, it's just about for them being able to sort that defence out. If they can sort their defence out and keep scoring the amount of goals that they're scoring, I think they're in a really promising position. But I think also they need to work out who they want to get in charge, if they're going to keep Nathan Delfonso or they're going to go for someone different. But I think at the moment they're just sort of sticking with Nathan, seeing what he's doing, and I think so far Fylde fans will probably be happy with how he started his interim reign. So it'll be interesting to see who they get in.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now moving on, I think many people might see this next result as probably the shock of the weekend. I think we definitely probably see it as a shock because it was Hartlepool versus Sutton taking place this weekend, and I expected Sutton to win this quite easily, but Hartlepool and specifically Manny Disarui had other ideas, didn't they, Chris? And he bagged a hat trick, and Hartlepool won 4-3 to kind of appease and maybe ease a little bit of the pressure on Darren Sell at the helm at Hartlepool for now. I think the pressure will still be there, and he'll still be feeling it because one result doesn't get you out of the woods, but it's a great start. I mean, I'm looking at this game now, and they came back from 2-0 down. Hartlepool, they were 2-0 down, and then it was 3-2 to Hartlepool. Sorry, no, 4-2 to Hartlepool it was. So Luke Sherman scored in the 55th minute, and then Manny got his hat trick 57, 71, and 85. And then Simper got a goal back that only proved to be a consolation for Sutton in the end. But yeah, absolute goal bonanza. And I think I've seen people sort of pile a bit of pressure on Disarui this year for not kind of leading the line as he has been doing previous years, maybe, and not really being as effective. But that's kind of one way to shut up your critics, isn't it, Chris? What do you think of this result from both sides, and do you think it can be the sort of catalyst to drive Hartlepool up and away from danger?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic result. I think Hartlepool really needed it. It's one of those big games where you need to win the game, or you're going to be facing huge pressure from media, fans, etc. And look, for Manny Disarure, he's come off the bench and scored a hat trick. Probably questions are asking why has he not started the game. Look, he's come on, he's made such an impact, and I think that's going to caused some questions with Darren Sarll. Should he be starting him? Because he's a great striker at this level, and you know what, he's always scored goals at every club that he's been at. But
Yeah.
I didn't think Hartlepool would win the game. Probably, I thought Sutton are in a good bit of form, and they'll go and probably get the result against a struggling side. But there's the games that really pick up the players, pick up the fans, the staff, and look, I think it was so needed for Hartlepool, just for confidence as well. Especially going 2-0 down at half time, probably sometimes writing's on the wall, especially if you're struggling. But, fair play to them. They've come back and they've got 3 points. And I think that's a vital 3 points for them. Hopefully they can push forward as well.
So in terms of going sort of forward now, sort of the pressure that Sal's been under, where are you at with obviously their start to the season and him as a manager? Do you think he is the right fit for Hartlepool? Do you think he can be the right fit, or do you think maybe they kind of got the appointment wrong to start with?
I think he's a good manager at this level. I think, maybe the fans need to get a bit more time. But look, I think Hartlepool would want to be around that 7th to 10th sort of position in the table, and look, so far that's not the case. And it's one of those where I think you do have to give it time, because Darren Salt in this league has proved to himself that he's one of the top managers in the division. And we know football, not everything changes overnight. So I think it's one of those where you give it a bit of time and see what happens. And you can't be making rash decisions. I think we're only 13 games into the season, and I do think for Hartlepool the FA Cup break will do them well. And I think for a lot of teams the FA Cup break has come at the right time. But it's just, I do think Darren Sarll's a good manager at this level, and he's proven. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the course of the season with him.
I think it's an interesting result for Sutton as well, because I think we can just put this one down to the bad day at the office. Although a couple of things I will say, they've still won 3 in the last 6, and they're only 2 points off the playoffs. But when we spoke to Steve Morrison in our interview for the Natter, he did say the aim was to go out and win this league, and if that is still the aim, and if that's something he believes he needs to do, then that the gap's beginning to widen now. They're 11 points off the top, so. I guess it depends what their sort of expectation is, but where are you with Sutton so far this season?
I think it's a very bold claim to say that you're going to come down to the National League and go straight back up, because I don't think anyone in recent history, maybe the last 10 years, has gone down and won the title. You had Grimsby go down and win through the playoffs, but I think it just proves how difficult this division is. For a side like Sutton to be already 11 points off the top of the table after 13 games just shows how tough it is. And you've got so many good sides in this division. But I feel for Sutton that the playoffs is probably where they're going to be ending up. Look, they're only 2 points off the playoffs, and they've had a bit of a strange start to the season. Start didn't really go that well. They had a good 5-0 thrashing of Altrincham, and they've got a couple back-to-back wins, and then this loss is a bit disappointing, especially being 2-0 up. You want to see out those type of games. But look, I think for me, Sutton are probably around that lower playoff mark, the 5th, 6th, 7th position. And look, it's a long season, so there's still so much time. Anything can happen. So we'll just have to wait and see and what happens with Sutton.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on now, I'm going to get this out of the way nice and early. And actually, I'm not going to be probably as overly analytical of the game as people might think I am. I think you can have games like this in a season, and it was one of them. I think for the first half, we're all looking at each other and thinking, we should probably be 2-3-0 up here. It was 0-0 at half time, and then but you're always, and with them games, Chris, you're always thinking, even though we're so dominant and so on top, there's always a chance, for a counter attack or for them to sneak a goal. And we come out the second half, we start a little bit slowly, and we get punished by a very, very structured Solihull Moors, I must say. And it was Jack Stevens in the 51st minute to fire them into the lead, and then from there we were kind of stepping up the gas a little bit. We were kind of throwing the kitchen sink. Mike Fondop and Josh Lundstrom, I could say that they probably at least should have had 2 goals each this weekend with the quality of the chances that they both missed. And it wasn't until the 78th minute that we actually got the equaliser through Mark Kitchen, who for a left back has now got 2 goals in 2 games from a corner, from a Dan Gardner corner. He met the ball at the back post and put the ball through the keeper's legs from a header, quite a nice header actually. And then you're thinking, that you could see by the players' reactions, they grabbed the ball, they ran, and you're thinking, there probably should only be one winner here. But as a little bit with the sort of Aldershot result as well, because we were pressing so high and hard for that winner, we kind of switched off a couple sometimes at the back, and we got caught and we got punished for that. It was Solihull Moors to take the lead again and kind of take the window out of our sails on the 81st minute through James Gale, as he. So the match report here makes me laugh a little bit, because it says he's slalom past 2 Oldham defenders before firing it in the net, when in reality we cleared the ball and the ball bounced off our defender's heel back to him in the box. So if they want to class it as a slalom, that's fair enough. But it was a lucky deflection that led into his path and put him 1-on-1 with the keeper. But it was a nice finish. And then you're thinking, at least get a point here or whatever, or it'd be a really sort of unfair loss. And then we're pushing on, and then for their third goal, and for people that might be thinking I'm biased, I'm sure Sutton fans would agree. I've seen a lot on the Sutton Twitter. How the linesman hasn't given it for offside, I will never know. The winger is about 2 yards offside, right, when he receives this ball, and he just goes into the box unopposed, makes it 3-1, and that's in the 93rd minute. But there was 8 minutes added on because there was quite a lot of time wasting going on. And like I said, I will never disrespect Laurie Walker. I love him as a goalkeeper. He had a brilliant spell with us for 3 or 4 games on emergency loan a couple of seasons ago and stuff. But he was doing a lot of the dark arts, re-rolling the balls, taking drinks before every goal kick, and like that. I get it. I'd want Matt Hudson to do the same, but that's probably why there was so much time added on. And then, so that was in the 93rd minute, and then in the 96th minute, Josh Lundstrom finished a lovely shot in the bottom corner to bring it back to 3-2 with 2 minutes to go. But unfortunately, we couldn't salvage anything from the game. Now, the last thing I would say from this game is it's only our second defeat all season, 2 defeats in 12. Our first loss at home this season. And look, I think for us, I think at this point, I would take, I would take being comfortably in the playoffs towards the end of the season. I think if I'm being honest, I think Barnet are looking strong at the minute. And look, we seem to have the number of Barnet in recent seasons, and maybe that might continue this year in one-off games. But I do think last year they were unlucky to go up, and I think this year by the same token, if they don't go up, it'll be like a what-if season. But I think they're looking a little bit strong, but I think we're definitely in playoff contention, and I think these are the sorts of games that can just happen where you play really well and you just get a bit unlucky, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, that's you know what, football is a very strange game. Sometimes you win when you don't deserve to win, and you lose when you deserve to win. And look, speaking about Laurie Walker, we've had him for the past 2 seasons. I think he's an unbelievable goalkeeper, one of the best at this level. And look, I think Laurie Walker does Laurie Walker things. He's trying to win the game for his team, and the dark arts is part of football. But look, from Solihull, I think it's a massive win. They ended 3 games without a win, and to go to Oldham, it's a difficult place to go. Not many teams, I don't think, will win there all season. And look, for Solihull, it's a massive 3 points. But Oldham, I think they'll be really disappointed. They're the kind of games that you want to try and win against teams that may be around those playoff places. And look, they've started the season really strongly. I think only 2 defeats in 13 is a really solid start. And look, I think they'll be in the top 3 by probably by May. I
I
think.
hope you're right. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because unless you're like an elite team, I would say, Barnet is showing it can happen at the minute. But I'd be interested to see how long it can carry on for. Like, it's so hard to put like a 4, 5, 6 game winning run together in this division, isn't it? And we were going for 5 wins on the spin. We couldn't get there, but we'd won. Excuse me, we'd won 4 prior to that, and I think it's all about sort of perspective, isn't it? I mean, I've told you, haven't I? I think Oldham's fan base are probably one of the wildest ones on Twitter and one of the most bipolar ones on Twitter at times. When we win, we think that we're the best team in the world, and when we lose, it's the end of the season. And I just wanted to come out here and say, well, I've got the podcast and I've got the platform. Some people's opinions and lack of wanting to give Mike Fondop credit this season is absolutely bewildering, by the way. Yes, he probably could have had a hatful of goals yesterday, but people, as soon as we lose, people call him shit and say that he's not good enough for the level. But Mike Fondop's goals has got us got us where we are now, got us a 3-point cushion. It's like just have a bit of perspective. You're not going to win every game. We're not Arsenal. We're not City. You know what I mean? Like it's a national league. It's a dog league, and look, these type of games are going to happen every once in a while.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I think you do get that with fan bases though. If someone doesn't score for a game or two or three, people say these kind of things. But I think perspective is such a massive thing, and you've just got to sort of give, back the team, especially back the team, and especially when you lose, you got to stick together as a fan base. And look, I think it helps everybody when you're together instead of all moaning at each other and just making it toxic. So, and I think you know more than me that Oldham has been a toxic fan
Yeah.
base has been quite toxic for a good couple of years. So you probably want to get away from that.
I think we're obviously with the new ownership and Frank and stuff, we're definitely getting better. But I think with something like that, because it was so bad for so many years, it takes a long time to sort of like wean that sort of, like mentality out of it. And I think sometimes we're a little bit like quick and a little bit easy to slip back into the to them notes when sometimes perspective is all that's needed. But anyway, that's enough of that game. Hopefully, we can bounce back at the FA Cup games next week. So we were just in fact, while we're speaking on that, we are obviously for reasons that not every National League team is playing the National League team, even though there is four National League versus National League fixtures. We won't have a podcast next week, a review podcast anyway. We might bring you some form of content, but we don't really know what that looks like yet. But we'll be back the weekend after to do match day number 14. But just moving on now, Chris, do you want to take us to Eastleigh versus Forest Green? Now, this is two teams that, well, I say, Eastleigh I would say started the season well. I think you know, they are beginning to falter a little bit now and probably not as strong as I remember 3 episodes in, we said, do they have enough, to mount for a title challenge? And both of us probably said, probably not. But maybe a playoff place could be a more realistic expectation, and they are just about holding on to that playoff place at the minute, but they are beginning to falter off. But it was Eastleigh versus Forest Green, so do you want to touch upon that one for us?
Yeah. So Eastleigh made it 1-0 after 37 minutes with Chris Maguire making it 1-0 just before half time, and it stayed like that until half time whistle went. So Eastleigh went 1-0 up into the break, and then ex Southend man Harry Cardwell, 2 minutes into half time, into the second half, made it 1-1. And 10 minutes later, Boskins has put it in his own net, making it 2-1 to Forest Green. And then Charlie McCann made it 3 in the 69th minute, making it 3 points for Forest Green and finishing Eastleigh off. And I think Forest Green have been really impressive. They've looked really promising. Only 2 defeats, and that's to two of probably two of the best teams in the league with Barnet and Oldham. And look, they're only 3 points. 3 points off the top is a great start to the season, and I think people expected them to be up there with the amount that the chairman's invested into the football club. And look, they've got to such a good start to the season, and they're definitely going to be up there with Barnet and I think York as well, just trying to maintain and try and have that kind of title fight. So it'll be interesting to see what happens into those next weeks. And I think Forest Green will be a bit frustrated that this FA Cup game is now coming up because especially with them and Barnet, I think that's the time you just want to keep building momentum,
Yeah, building
and
momentum.
it's just come at the worst time. But that's the football calendar. You just got to be professional about it and try and win that game, and then you can build momentum back into the league campaign.
Absolutely, absolutely. From an Eastleigh point of view now, obviously they are, like I just said, clinging on to the playoff place, but it's only one win in the last 6 games, 3 defeats thrown in there as well. What are you thinking of their sort of their current run of form, and where do you see what do you see for them over the next couple of weeks when the league action returns?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because obviously they've started the season really well, and now they've sort of had that drop off, which I think we all expected to happen. I didn't think Eastleigh would be competing with Barnet, Forest Green, York, those type of sides right at the top of the season. But look, I think you can take 13 games, you're in the playoffs, which is a really good start to the season, I think. And just because you've had a little drop off in form doesn't mean that what's happened in the first, 7 games is null and void. So I think that Eastleigh will be really happy with their start. Look, they're only 6 points off second, 9 off top, but they just need to try and maintain keeping that kind of momentum, trying to keep it going. But I do think it'll be difficult going into the winter period where the games do ramp up, and if
Hmm.
they've got that squad depth to be able to compete fully with the types of such as Barnet, such as Forest Green, York, Gateshead. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that kind of next until up to Christmas. But I do think we'll see a kind of major shift in near like the bottom end of the playoffs and that kind of
Yeah, I
area.
agree. So next up, then we are talking about, and you might be wondering why have we put the league leaders so far down, but this was a Chris decision we were speaking about because we put Barnet at the top of the bill last week. We thought we'd be a bit more fair and put them sort of top half this week, but again, the run continues, Chris, doesn't it? I mean, it wasn't plain sailing, though, was it? I think it's fair to say, at half time, I remember looking at these scores and I'm thinking, whoa, Boston are here to upset the apple cart a little bit, but as good teams always do, they always find a way to come back. And look, you dealt with a setback well, and you got the 3 points and 3 goals to match. But do you want to talk to us about your thoughts and feelings and just give us a bit of a rundown?
Yeah, yeah. So Boston, you know what? Fair play to them. First half, they were so good. They caught us on the break. I don't think they had one shot the whole game. They scored. They're very clinical, and look, they came with a game plan to get an early goal. They got it, and look, they played really well first half. Playing man for man, defending unbelievably in the first half. But I just think our quality just came through.
Hmm.
Players like Callum Stead, Nicky Kabamba, they're just I think our team is so good. Like we've got so many good players. Even being able to bring off the bench, like the quality that we have is ridiculous, and we've still got so many injuries.
Yeah.
Harry Chapman's injured. We've got Danny Collins is out, maybe one of our best centre backs. It's ridiculous how much quality we've got. Idris Carney's not even getting in the first team, and he comes on, makes a great difference to the team, and I just think we're looking really strong. And in the game, even when we were 1-0 down at half time, I was saying to people around us, I'm like, I still think we're going to win the game quite comfortably. Just because if we get that first goal, that's where the confidence comes, and
Yeah,
it's just flowing at the moment. Like I don't, there's
absolutely.
never really a time that I'm worrying about the team, and especially at home because we're just so strong at home. I think the
Are
players absolutely
you?
love playing at the heart. Go on.
It's an interesting one though, isn't it? Because I always think maybe this is just like a sort of glass half empty sort of way of thinking, but you would imagine the run has to sort of end or restart or whatever you want to look at it at some point. Now, before we talk about, or before you want to talk about Boston or how you think you'll get on as the season progresses, you said, didn't you, the next 2 games, league games you have are very, very interesting ones for you. Did you say it's what did you say now? Did you say it's
Solihull and York both away.
Solihull and York both away? So I think if you come out of them unscathed, I think we're looking at real title contenders then. I'm not saying you're not title contenders now, you're top of the tree for a reason, of course. But like I think if you can get through them games, they are the sort of like title defining, title winning sides go there and get the results, don't they? So I think it's interesting. But what are your thoughts on the psychology of it in terms of are you like what is like the realistic demand of the fan base now with this run, and how long do you think you can keep it going, especially the unbeaten home run and the the consecutive wins at home?
Yeah, I think probably the fan base is now like this has to be it now. We probably now is I think we do win the title. I will be
Mhm.
100% honest. I just think we've got so much quality, we've got so much depth, and I just feel that now is the biggest chance that we've had since we've come back down to go up. I think Dean Brennan's done an absolutely unbelievable job. Year on year, we've improved. First season he had half came in October, came 17th. You know, then the season after got into sixth and lost in the quarter final of the playoffs. Then we lost last season to Solihull 4-0 in the semi final of the playoffs. So that progression has always been there. So I feel that this is the next step, and I feel that this is the strongest that we've looked. Obviously, the play style was quite different from last year, and I think we've got now the players to do that. If you look at our team that played on Saturday, there's only 3 players that started the playoff game last season. So
Yeah.
you got Coker came on as a sub, Brunt played, Kabamba played, Stead didn't play, he had a dead leg in that game, so he didn't play. But that's a massive overhaul, and people thought, don't make many changes, just go and build on your squad. But I think we've taken the approach where we want to be ruthless, and we've made signings that have improved us. No, Hobson has been an unbelievable. Bailey Hobson from Chesterfield, that's an unbelievable signing. He's incredible in midfield. Such a technical player, and that's something I have so much credit for Brennan to do. His recruitment is absolutely second to none, and probably the best in this division. And we've got such a good squad, and I feel that this. I'm not trying to get too excited, but I'm just looking. I'm really excited.
It
Like,
does make me
I
laugh,
just
and just
think
for the banter side of it, you're talking about progression and progression. So surely the next progression in the story is a player final
no,
defeat, right?
no. The progression is a win against Oldham at home.
Yeah, yeah. There we go.
That's the
There we
progression.
go.
If we win against you at home, we may as well finish. That's it. The league's done if we
Yeah,
beat you. But
nice.
yeah,
But just quickly on a Boston point of view now, I think it's hard to say I'm worried for them because I had the expectation that they probably struggle anyway, and if they manage to survive, it would be a massive achievement. But they showed a lot of steel, to be at half-time leading and obviously, like you say, clinical. But now, if you look, there's no winning six there for them. Four losses in that time, and they're now 4 points adrift. How much of sort of like a worry and a panic if you're in the Boston camp would you be at this point, Chris?
I don't think there's too much worry to be honest. I thought they played really well, so it's kind of one of those where you want to pick up points, but also I think they played really well. And look, to be fair to their fans, they were absolutely fantastic. Singing non-stop throughout the game. I think they brought 400 down to us. So look, they got such a passionate fan base, and I feel that they'll be all right. I really do. I think their performance was strong, especially in the first half, and I think second half it's just our kind of quality came through. But look, I think maybe the FA Cup game has come probably at the right time for them. Obviously,
Yeah,
they've had what three back-to-back defeats, but they've had a tough run. Gateshead, Maidenhead, you probably want to get a win from that or a draw, and then Barnet, obviously. But I think you just sort of see what happens, and they're playing really good football, so I wouldn't worry too much about Boston.
yeah. No, I mean, I wouldn't say like I said, I don't think it's a mad worry, but I think no winning six and four defeats in that time as well is a bad habit that needs breaking quickly for them. But obviously, it depends what. I know the expectation is just to put up a brave fight, and I guess they're doing that for now. But the final game we are going to cover before the break is Tamworth versus Halifax. Now, we have been impressed with the steel and the sort of resilience of Tamworth so far to be out of the relegation zone and have a little bit of a buffer. And they started this game in absolute dreamland, really, didn't they? It was, they were 2-0 up, and I thought we were going to get ready to come on here today and talk about Halifax's sort of weaknesses and things that aren't improving, but they actually showed a little bit of steel this week and didn't just come back to level the game. They got all 3 points, and in this game, obviously, I think if you Tamworth, you are absolutely gutted that you've thrown away a 2-0 lead. But from a Halifax point of view, again, it shows that there maybe is a little bit of fire, a little bit of, because I questioned the last time we were on the podcast whether that sort of fire and that intensity is in the bellies anymore, and maybe this proves that it's still there. Of course, it's. I don't want to say it's only Tamworth because that sounds disrespectful, but if you are an established National League team with ambitions, then you really have to be picking up points off Braintree, Tamworth, and Boston, if we're being honest, don't you? So I think they've done what's probably been expected of them, but to do it in the manner that they've done shows a lot of character, doesn't it, Chris? I mean, we don't want to just look like we're piling on Halifax every week, but again, the attendance is 1,400. That is something needs to change there. I don't know whether there needs to be a bit more of a promotion cry, a promotional cry, whether they can do something with the tickets, whether the chairman needs to come out and say something. But that is really, really poor support. But I just wondered what your thoughts were on the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's. I think they started the season all right. You know, you kind of look now; they're only a point off the playoffs. But look, I do agree that attendances are shocking for a club such as Halifax. You know, their stadium's absolutely massive, and I think there's so much potential there. And you know, as you were saying about offers, I think that's something that they may be able to go down. But yeah, I think that it's 2-0 down at half time. But to go back and win 3-2 is a massive, massive result. And I don't think they've started the season that badly. You know, you kind of see where they're at. Is that probably where Halifax fans want them to be? Probably. Probably that's where they are, maybe just outside playoffs mid-table position. So I think that's probably where they will probably finish the season, maybe a bit lower down than eighth. But look, the attendance, 1,500 is pretty poor. So I don't
In,
know.
ter-
This is a tough one.
in terms of Tamworth, though, but like I still think it's been a really good start to the season for them. 3 wins, 3 losses in 6. And they still have the 2-point gap from themselves and Fylde in the bottom 4. I think you take that if you're a Tamworth supporter, wouldn't you?
No, 100%. I think they've started the season, bar when they played us away. I think they've started the season really strongly. They're the second highest out of all the promoted sides, and 2 points away from the relegation zone. So I think they've started the season strongly, but they'll be really disappointed. Going 2-0 up away from home. If they win that game, they're up into mid-table, 13th, around where Dagenham and Redbridge are. So yeah, disappointing loss, but I think there's promising signs there for them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the time has come for us to have a little bit of a break, and you guys, you wonderful listeners, to listen to our sponsors. So we will be back in a very short space of time once you have heard from our wonderful sponsors. And we are back. We are back. So next on the agenda for this week is, in fact, Chris, do you want to lead us into the next one?
Yes, gladly. So next game is Southend against Maidenhead United, and the struggles are continuing at Roots Hall with a Maidenhead picking up a 2-0 away win with a Kevin Loco double, making it a third successive National League win at Southend for Maidenhead United, which is a pretty interesting stat. And Maidenhead took the lead just after 13 minutes with a free kick where Loco rose the highest from a Nathan Ferguson free kick to make it 1-0 in the early stages. And ex-Barnet player Craig Ross, absolute shithouse king of the National League, just kept Southend at bay. And, he's such a good goalkeeper at this level. And Jack Bridge and Josh Walker's efforts couldn't get enough. But going into the break, Maidenhead led 1-0, and then the combo again of Nathan Ferguson and Kevin Loco made it 2-0 on the 68th minute, and it was another headed goal, so 2 headed goals for Kevin Loco, and Southend struggles really continue. So far 16th in the league, 14 points from 13 games, just averaging over a point a game. It's not ideal, and yeah, I think they're really struggling. I think they're in a really bad moment, but I still think that they'll be able to sort of carry. I think they'll be okay. Just trying to. They've got to work through this period, because what happened last season, they did really well. They would have got in the playoffs if they didn't have the points deduction. But they're just in a difficult time, I think. They're just struggling for a bit of form, bit of just goals. I think they're struggling for as well. So yeah, disappointing day for Southend.
I started speaking then and I realised my mic was muted. I'm back, don't worry.
Mm.
I'll be honest, so I am probably a bit more worried for Southend than maybe you are at this point. I just think it's gone the opposite way to what we were expecting, in terms of, they've got the takeover now, they've had the embargo lifted, they can sign players that they want, and it's just not happening for them. They don't seem to have a lot of goals in them at the minute. They're only 2 points off the bottom 4. That they are is it 7 or 8 points off the playoffs? Let me just double check. It is 7 points off the playoffs. And look, yeah, as well, it's like if I have a look now, so the next lot of National League games they've got Rochdale away, which at this moment in time that's not an easy game, is it? If we're being honest, and then they have Aldershot and then Tamworth, so potentially room to pick up some points there. But I do worry for them because I think it would be the typical football story and the typical football storyline for them to survive all this hardship this season, and then the actual season they seem to sort it out off the field and being a bit in the clear, they actually get relegated on the field. I wouldn't put it past. Like, I've seen the script before, and obviously I do think they've got enough quality to survive it, but I do worry, especially with that sort of the 4 defeats in 6 and the lack of goals at the minute. I do worry for them. But in terms of Maidenhead, I think that is a brilliant sort of away performance, and like you say, I think especially it seems like it's a very happy place for Maidenhead to go at the minute with that stat that you blessed us with before, Chris, because I wasn't aware of that. Well, anyone that goes to Southend, regardless whether they're struggling or not, I think anyone that beats Southend there will be happy just with the nature of the football club that we know Southend should be. Whether they are what we think they should be at the minute is a different story. But yeah, I do worry a little bit, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's a really tough one because I feel like last year they sorted all the ownership problems out, and this was like, you know what, let's go and kick on, let's try and go in the playoffs like they should have been last season, but it's just not happened for them this season. They've only won 1 game in 6, and I think they're in a really tough moment. But I think it's something that the management team need to sort of be able to sort of grab a hold on and try and push themselves out of such a difficult situation. But from Maidenhead, they've won the last 3 games and they've looked really strong. So that's how football is. But Maidenhead, fair play. They're really doing well now and trying to survive again. Everyone has them go down, but they're doing what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, next up on the agenda is Braintree versus Altrincham. And I think this kind of just sums up the inconsistency of Altrincham so far this season. Coming into this game, we talked about them, picking up a bit of form. They'd won the last 2 on the spin, and they were looking to kind of pick themselves back up again. But Braintree were playing at home. And I said, last week, I said, I watched the Braintree versus Rochdale game before we came on the TV, and I was impressed by Braintree. I think on another day, they at least deserve a point at Rochdale. And I said, I think they'd cause a few teams problems. And this is what they did. And look, you'll be pleased again as a Barnet fan because that the one of the goal scorers this weekend was a player that we both seem to rate quite highly on this podcast in Jermaine Francis after 17 minutes on loan from Barnet, and then the points were wrapped up on the 91st minute thanks to John Akindi and a 91st minute penalty. Now that's the third National League victory for Braintree all season, and I think they are doing well, and I think it shows. It shows that they are probably beginning to find the feet as they go, and they probably they have more confidence and more belief that they can give games to anyone now. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they develop from a Aldringham side. Now, obviously, they'd won the previous 2, so it's not the end of the world as such, and they are now 3 points off the playoff, so they can make it. But I expect. I don't know whether I should say I expect a bit more, but I definitely didn't expect, even with the loss of Chris and Clark, I didn't expect Altrincham to be this patchy and this inconsistent to this point. Did you, Chris?
No, I did. I thought they'd be a bit higher up than they were. To be fair, I know the loss of Chris von Clark is massive, but I think they've just really struggled. They've just they've just not been able to pick up as many points as they have. But then you look at the points table; they're only 3 points off the playoffs. So it's really early days, and I think they're just trying to adapt to that loss of such a key player. But from a Braintree perspective, it's a brilliant win, and I think it's something that they really needed. It's a massive confidence boost. Obviously, Jermaine Francis on the score sheet from a Barnet fans' perspective, unbelievable. He's really getting some great National League experience, and I think he started every game. Same with Finley Wilkinson. So for Bayern's perspective, that's very nice. And yeah, I think it's a good 3 points for Braintree at home. And they've got to try and, if they can win their home games, I think they'll be good because on paper they've got such a strong squad. Experience of John Akindi, Ini Effiong, Louis Ainsley, and they've got that youth of Jermaine Francis, Finley Wilkinson. So
I
I think
know
they've got a good squad. So be interested to see
it,
what happens there.
it's interesting, and obviously I know it comes down to sample size, but again, I don't really know about the population of Braintree or anything like that. But I've just looked here. If this is the correct figure, there was 726 fans in the Braintree home stadium this weekend. So we have a go at Halifax, but yet they're still the second, not the lowest attended league game in this division. But like I say, it's all about sample size, isn't it? And but yeah, from like I say, from Braintree's point of view, I have been impressed with them. From the bits and bobs I've seen of them this sort of year. I mean, obviously we kicked off with them on opening day, and they didn't really do anything. Like they just kind of had a game plan to, kind of get it up to the big experience up front, but it didn't really work. But since then, it seems like they've tried to, bring ball players on, bring directness in with the likes of Finley Wilkinson and Jermaine Francis, and they've changed up the game plan a little bit, and it seems to be working. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. So next up, and I'm going to give you this one to cover because I know you love to talk about a draw on this podcast. So next up, we
Crazy.
are going to be speaking about Woking versus York, which was the half five TV game. And yeah, this ended 1-1. Chris, so do you want to take us away on it?
Yeah, I'll go for it. So Woking York obviously a 5:30 kickoff, so all the results came in. We were just waiting for a Woking win to finish our perfect day at the Hive, but didn't go like that. So it was a 1-1 draw with Woking, and listen, 0-0 at half time. Not much happened in the first half, but 10 minutes into the second half, Raheem Conte's ball found Dan Moss at the far post to score his first goal for Woking of the season, and it stayed like that. You think Woking, they're going to hold on for 3 points, but no. Who comes off the bench? The absolute man, the Mr. Shop, John Lewis. Penalty for York with 8 minutes to play. What does he do? Slide it home. I think he scored about 6 goals off the bench already. It's absolutely ridiculous. Saving York a point and keeping them in the top three. So good start for York this season. Obviously, only one loss. They're the team who've lost the least amount of games in the National League, so very promising start from them. And only 4 points off top, so they'll be happy with their start to the season for sure. And John Lewis just keeps scoring. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, for York, you know, it's another game unbeaten, isn't it? Really, only one loss all season. They are now the team, like you just said, that have lost the least amount of games, and 3 wins, 3 draws. You will take that because it keeps racking up the points. That's what you were saying with Oldham's run as it was going on, and I think it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? That they'll be happy with that, and I think it's a really interesting season with York because now we're beginning to see maybe the sort of the benefits of the big like cash injections they've had, and last season they were signing player after player and it just wasn't working. So now this season they're actually having time to gel with the players, and I think they're beginning to reap the rewards now. From a Woking point of view, they have really, really slid off from where they were maybe just 4 or 5 weeks ago, if we're being honest. We did a couple of podcasts, probably about 5 weeks ago, and they were fourth in the table, and now they're 14th in the table, and they are 5 points off the playoffs. No win in their last um, five. And look, I I Woking are one of them teams. I never really know what to expect with them when it comes to a season, because obviously they've been there and done it in terms of like in the playoffs before, but they've also been scrapping for the lives the next season. So I think they're very, sort of wishy washy, really, aren't they, Chris?
Yeah, I think they're so inconsistent, and that's kind of been a problem for them. Maybe since, after the Darren Sarr season getting into the playoffs, well, unfortunate to lose out to Bromley, but they've not really kind of kicked on from that. And last season they just stayed up. So I think Woking are in a difficult moment, and they're just, I think, struggling really. They want to kind of push on up the division, but it's not really happened for them. And you know, I, I'm not really sure what's going on with Woking. They signed some experienced players in the summer. Um, Dale Gorman's now their captain. He was with us for a good 2 seasons, and he was magnificent. But fans saying that he's not up to scratch. So I'm not really sure what to think of Woking. They've got that inconsistency for sure, but I don't know. I just think they're maybe just that mid-table team this season. But yeah, they're just a bit of a weird one for me.
Sorry about that. My mum has returned home, and my dog is barking like crazy. Um, so I apologize if you can hear him in the background. But yeah, I agree with Woking. I just think I don't think I ever had them down as playoff contention or anything. So the start of the season was so impressive, but I think the sort of fall off and the slide has been equally impressive. But yeah, so moving on now, then we are gonna touch upon, as Chris has put it. By the way, I'd just like to I'm just reading it as he's put it down in our notes here. So, Wealdstone fans, be more than welcome to come at Chris on Twitter for this description of you. But he has put Gateshead versus Wealdstone. That's how he is.
It's factual information. It's factual
How he has
information.
named it. But yeah, so let's talk about that then, Chris. So coming into this coming into this game, I think many people expected Gateshead to do the job, and that's what they did. I wouldn't say it was overly comfortable, and it took to the last 17 minutes of the game for Gateshead to get there. But they, that Gateshead just keep ticking over, and I think there's a couple of things here. I think at what point do you, are the interim managers in Greg Ollie and uh, the others in contention for the permanent position, because they've come in, really sort of steadied the ship and just kind of carried on that momentum. I think it's a really impressive job. But for Wealdstone now, it is kind of getting um, it's kind of getting a real big worry for me. Like, a friend of the podcast, Adam, is a massive Wealdstone fan, and he's been saying to us, the tide will turn soon. We've been playing well and getting unlucky, but the facts are, no winning six, and only one win all season, Chris, and they're already 5 points adrift, and yeah, it's real sort of desperate times, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously, it's a tough moment for us. I think they're going to try and safety. They're going to try and stay up, and they did well to do that last season. Obviously, they had the trouble with the pitch. They were barely playing games, and they had Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday for I think about 2 weeks by the end of the last season. But look, they're 23rd. They've won one game all season, and I think for their fans, the alarm bells are probably ringing now. 5 points adrift after 13 games is really just not what you want. But yeah, I don't know what to think about Wealdstone because, like, obviously when we played them in the derby, obviously it's a derby game, so I think it's quite a hard game to sort of judge, how they're going to play because there's a lot of things going into a derby. But I think it's they're in a really just tough position, and I think you've got the chairman, the board. Maybe you have to think of a managerial change because something's not going right at the moment, and they're adrift. And at the end of the day, this is a results based business, and they need to get results quickly, or they're going to be really struggling. But for Gateshead, with the manager change, it'll be interesting to see who they get in. And a 1-0 win against Wealdstone, you take it. And yeah, I'll be interested to see who they get in,
So,
Gateshead.
with that being said, then, are you more sort of in the camp of you need like a new permanent manager rather than just try and give it to the interims till the end of the season, even though they're on a good run, and see what they can do? Because I think you can look at it from either side of the coin. The interims would have been there under, Rob Elliott, so it's a bit of a different way of doing it. But then they've got the continuity of playing that same sort of style because they've been working on it with him. But then I always think it's a good idea to get fresh ideas and fresh input. So I just wondered what side of the sort of argument you were on that. Yeah.
I think it's worked in the past. So look, if that's I think that's the way Gateshead have gone down the managerial route. But I do think it's quite a surprising thing to go interim, and then it would be another interim now. But I'm not really sure who they're going in for. But then I don't think they need to rush as well. They've got their FA Cup game next week. I think they're playing a team, I think, a couple of divisions below. So maybe worth giving the interim in charge for that game. And then you've got 2 weeks from Saturday to the next National League fixture. So
Yeah.
I think there's no need to rush around trying to get an appointment. I don't think Gates will do that anyway. So it's worth spending time and making sure you get the right appointment instead of going for someone that may not be the right appointment, but you get them in quicker.
Yeah, I have to tend to sort of agree, really. So next up on the list is a team that I've been backing for no apparent reason all season other than nostalgia in Yeovil and Dagenham and Redbridge. Now, this 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 game ended up in a 1-0 win for Yeovil Town, and it came through Kieran McGurkin. And they actually leapfrogged Dagenham and Redbridge with this result. And like we were talking about, obviously newly promoted into this division, is their aim just to survive? But I've always said that I think they have a bit more than that in the locker, and the form is slowly starting to improve. Yes, they've only won 1 in 6, but they've not lost in 3. You could look at it either way, and they are now only 3 points off the playoffs. So I think they'll be happy with that. In terms of a Dagenham persuasion, Chris, they are a bit further off the playoffs. But I say that it's literally a point between the two. They're 4 points off. You're both 3 points off. But yeah, I just wondered what you thought to this game, and whether you think maybe Yeovil can kind of comfortably survive and maybe look to push on, or what you think the aims for both of these sides are.
I think they've both got off to really good starts, to be honest. Yeovil, I expected them to be a bit lower down, to be honest, just because that that difference between the National League and the National League South, North, whatever you want to call it, is a very big difference, and it's a tough step up. And I think with Dagenham, they're still in that building phase with the manager. They're still going through the phases, and obviously it's a disappointing result. But I think also they're just trying to gain a bit of momentum, and they're just building. And look, you got to think about how close both teams are to the playoffs. Only 3 points off for Yeovil, and as you said, 4 for Dagenham. So I think they've both got off to quite solid starts to the season, and they could be quite happy going into the FA Cup fixtures and how they've started their seasons.
Yes, I agree. So to finish off the review before we do our podium this week, it's time to touch upon my favourite neighbours. And it was Rochdale versus Ebbsfleet. Now, I must admit, I've watched the highlights of this game. I listened to a bit of the radio comms and the radio reactions as well. And if I'm being honest, Rochdale should have scored 3 or 4 or 5 and been out of sight at halftime. And they were 2-0 up at halftime, and you're thinking, oh, they're just going to swim to another 3 points here. They're looking good. They were second in the league this weekend at some point, Chris. And but there was a 5-minute mad period where Ebbsfleet decided, you know what, we're not just going to be a mat for everyone this season. We're actually going to dig our heels in and show what we're about, and that's certainly what they did. They got 2 goals in the space of 5 minutes, thanks to, well, one of them was one of the most audacious. It was very similar to Nick Haughton's goal actually this weekend. An audacious attempt by Chapman, who, I don't know whether you've seen the finish, Chris, but he literally seen the goalkeeper off the line, took the shot, it didn't bounce, went straight into the back of the net, and you know that gets the crowd up, that gets a bit of belief, that gets people cheering, and then you know from there, then you start to shake a little bit. Even if you are as strong as Rochdale are this season, you know you get a bit worried, and they conceded a penalty, Rochdale, just 3 minutes later, and Rakesh Bingham converted from the penalty spot to secure a vital point in Ebbsfleet's sort of mission to survival. And well, I think Rochdale will be, yes, Rochdale have started very well, and yes, it's still a point, and yes, it's still well within the playoffs. But I think considering everyone and the dog, if we're being completely honest, were beating Ebbsfleet this season, you know, to be 2-0 up, no red card either, and not finish the job, that's a bad result, isn't it, for Rochdale, I think?
Yeah, I know. I think against Ebbsfleet as well, you know, I think Ebbsfleet kind of bounced back in since they've got the new manager in. They've got actually, I think, 2 points since he's come back in. But I think for Rochdale, you know, they've gone 2-0 up. You're probably cruising at half time, and then 5 minutes, you're now back to level. And as you were saying, that they probably should have won the game more comfortably. And is that maybe a lapse of Rochdale's quality, you know, that they can't finish off games? You know, I don't know. But it's one of those where you've got to sort of think, are Rochdale going to be up there if they slipping up against, you know, respect the worst team in the division at the moment as they are rock
Yeah.
bottom. But look, I think Rochdale overall can be very happy though. You know, 6 points off the top of the league. You know, 4 points cemented into the playoffs. I think they've been really good start to the season, and look, it's going to be interesting after we have the FA Cup break for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and just from a sort of Rochdale perspective as well, I was quite surprised to see this result. And I guess this is what happens when a striker goes on a good run or in a form. You always kind of expect them to score, and Rochdale scored 2 goals without the need for Cairo Mitchell this weekend. And I think that's a really good. Even though they've thrown away the lead, I think that in itself is a bit of a positive, showing that maybe they actually don't need to rely on him as much as people think they do. You know, and the fact that they seem to be kind of looking to spread the goals out a bit more now is a good thing going forward. But that brings us to the end of the review part now. Quickly before we go, are you ready to do the podium, Chris?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
To be honest, I think this is quite an obvious one. Well, it is an obvious one to me who's going to take gold this weekend. So with that being said, I think it's just a case of looking at a bronze and silver shouts. Now, would you like to take bronze or silver?
I'll go for silver. I'll go for
Okay, so
silver.
I will take bronze,
Go on then.
and for the finish alone, you have to give it to Nick Haughton.
Interesting.
I think I mean there should be a little fourth podium every week or majority of weeks just for Nick Haughton to stand on. To be fair, because he's that good. But I think that finish was absolutely ludicrous because, like Chris said, like he said, it was halfway, and if you actually look when he actually struck the ball, it was about 60 yards away. Like you know, it's maybe not 60 yards, but it was good. I would say it's a good 40 yards away at least. And you know, it didn't bounce either, which normally you see them bounce before the line, and I just think it was an outrageous goal from an outrageous player that deserves to be on the podium. But then you if I do that, Ebbsfleet fans are probably thinking about what about Chapman's finish, who did very similar things. So then you've got that argument. But I think that one was a bit more impressive considering Chapman's was bang halfway, whereas Nick Haughton's was a little bit lower back. So Nick Haughton is my bronze shout anyway.
Well, I'm gonna have to choose. It's gonna be quite a Fylde heavy podium. So I'm going to go with another Fylde player who I don't think we can leave out, with Chris Johnny scoring 2 goals and getting 2 assists. I think it's just an unbelievable performance from him. So I think
Yeah,
he has to be in there, and fair play. What performance?
the Fylde fans will be very happy with this podium this week.
Yeah.
And then a 3-2-1. Let's see how big in sync we are. I'm praying to God in your head. You only think there's one gold winner here, right? So
Yeah,
3,
Callum
2,
said
1. The gold winner
Disorra.
should be Desiree
Yeah, no,
from
of course.
Halifax.
Hat trick off the
Halifax?
bench.
From Hartlepool, sorry, not
Halifax.
Halifax.
Hat trick off the bench. Unreal.
I don't think there's
Ridiculous.
much more that needs to be said about that either. Yeah, hat trick off the bench. A bagsman in this division anyway, and someone that felt like he needed to prove himself a little bit. And what better way to prove yourself than getting a hat trick off the bench to help your team win a game that not many people expected you to win. So, like I said, for us, nice little week off, enjoying some little FA Cup action. Even though, as a National League side, Chris, I don't really know what to think of the FA Cup anymore, because it's 3 games before we get a big tie, really, isn't it? If we're being honest. You know what I mean? Like 3 games before we get a money-making tie. Maybe that's where I should put it. Championship side, Premier League side. That's like 3 games a run that you have to go on for it. And maybe it's just because I've been so used to us going in at the first round for so many years. But I'll be there. I'll be cheering on the boys. Hopefully we can get the job done and get in the first round proper. But yeah, so you will see us in. So it'll be 2 weeks. Won't it? 2 weeks today.
Yeah, 2 weeks today.
Yeah, nice.
Being
Well, like
solid.
I said, I don't
Being
know
our
what we're
trip
going
to
to do with the
Solihull.
preview show. Me and Lauren, we will think of some content, some form of content to get out to you across that sort of week, I guess. But in the meantime, we have been National League Natter. This has been your Match Day 13 review, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.